citizens of God's household. Today we come to the final lesson from our September series, Belonging to God. Our text is the third chapter of Philippians. If I were teaching the lesson, I would look at the themes of Paul's great letter to the colony of Christians in Philippi. One theme is affection. Paul says, I thank God every time I remember you, chapter 1, verse 3. He goes on and on how greatly he loves them. Secondly is self-sacrifice, primarily of Jesus. Chapter 2 has a beautiful, moving passage of Jesus emptying himself and giving up his rights to equality with God. Paul even speaks of his own hardships and says his mistreatment, his imprisonment, has helped to spread the gospel. Now the entire imperial prison guard knows about Christ. Paul was under house arrest, but was chained to a guard to keep him from escaping. My father was a CO, a conscientious objector, in World War I in 1918. Because he refused to train and become a soldier due to his Christian convictions, he was severely mistreated by his military officers. 35 years later, in 1953, my father saw a picture, an article in the Cleveland Plain Dealer of a police officer who had been shot in the stomach. My father looked at the picture long and hard, and then he told our family, I know that man. He was the officer in the army who beat me up. He said, I must see him and share Jesus with him. The next day, my father went to a Cleveland hospital with a friend to visit him. I don't know how the conversation went, but when the army officer recognized who my father was, he broke down in tears. I do know that on that day, an army officer and a CO reconciled. Like the Apostle Paul, my father saw opportunity in difficult times. Paul claims the entire imperial guard learned the message of the gospel. The third great theme is standing firm. The church at Philippi had great obstacles to remaining firm and steadfast to Jesus Christ. In verse 2, Paul speaks of one of these obstacles. He uses strong language, dogs and evil workers. Here he is referring to those who want to slip back into the law and nullify the grace of God. Here you may want to raise a question of what are the factors within the church that are holding us back from total allegiance to Christ. I assure you there are many. Paul even speaks of his own impeccable pedigree in Judaism. In the end, he calls it rubbish when you compare it to gaining Christ. Does our ethnic, Swiss-German, Anabaptist heritage with our compulsion to playing the Mennonite game hold us back at times from enlarging the table for others to join? You might explore this a bit. For Mennonites to become more evangelistic and inviting, we have to see other people's heritage and story as equally valid. In verse 18, it is a bit unclear what Paul is referring to, but I suspect it was the Gnostics who argued for a kind of libertine approach to the gospel. Sin, so grace may abound. Then Paul speaks of our citizenship in heaven. If I were teaching the lesson, I may want to explore this idea of citizenship in heaven. In the last number of years, evangelical Christians have become very involved in politics. Is it wise to be embedded in a political party? American nationalism is on the rise in evangelical churches today. Could we say we belong to the party of Jesus Christ? How are we grateful for the liberties we have in the U.S. and Canada? We are totally free to stand firm in Christ and share this wonderful lesson and this wonderful message with others. I think I would challenge the class with this thought. I hope you have a wonderful time teaching this lesson.